Hey, what's going on, guys? It's John back with another video. Today's going to be a theory video, and we're going to be talking about scale degrees. So this is something that is necessary for you to understand. It's going to make your life a lot easier when you start to learn new chords, new scales, and all around it's just going to help you become a better musician, okay? Especially when you're playing by ear. So what are scale degrees? Scale degrees are a way for us to identify the relationships between notes, whether that be in a scale, whether that be in a chord progression. Understanding scale degrees is a big deal. So we're going to go on ahead and jump right into it. There's a couple of different ways that you can see these collections of notes. You can either see them as a scale or you can see them as chords. Okay. These are going to be the most common ways that we see these things. All right. Now I've written them out in Roman numerals. So if you don't know Roman numerals, definitely brush up on it. If you're going to be learning a lot of music theory, a lot of things are going to be written in Roman numerals. So you just want to get comfortable with that. You only have to know 1 through 7. So it's not going to be that hard. But let's go on ahead and get started with some of these things here. So if you've watched any of my previous videos regarding scales or intervals, you'll know that in order for us to actually understand what musically is going on, we have to measure distance between notes. Okay, so that has to be 2 or more notes that we're measuring distance against, right? So whenever we're talking about scale degrees, it's always going to be in this set, okay? Set of 7, and we derive that from our major scale. If you've watched my video on the major scale, you'll understand where I'm coming from with this, okay? So in this case, we're taking an example in the key of C, okay? If you look to the left of the screen, we have names for all of these different scale degrees. Okay, a scale degree is simply the name for a specific note or chord within that set of notes. Okay, number 1 is going to be your tonic, your 1 chord. Tonic means home. Okay, that means the place where everything is centered around, your key center. All of these note relationships relate back to the tonic. Okay, why? The tonic is our starting base. That's home. Okay. Any distance that we move away from the tonic is directly going to be affected by the tonic, right? Because we're measuring distance from the tonic to all these other notes. So each one of these scale degrees has a function, and that function is based around the tonic. Okay. The 2 most important scale degrees in any given key is going to be the 4th scale degree and the 5th scale degree. Okay. The subdominant and the dominant. Why? The 4 and the 5 have a very strong tendency to persuade your ear into wanting to move back to the 1. Okay. So I'm pretty sure you guys have heard this before. Okay. You've heard that movement before somewhere, whether it be in classical or whether you're playing a video game and you win something. You know, it sounds very triumphant, very, very uplifting. Okay. That was me moving from the 5th scale degree, G in the key of C, to the tonic. Okay. The reason why we call G the dominant, or the 5th scale degree the dominant, is because it has the most tension to resolution to the 1. Okay. So let's take a look at it. So if we take a look at our G chord and we take a look at our C chord, okay, our C chord has C, E, G. Our G chord has G, B, D. Okay. There's only 1 note in common between those 2 chords, and that note is G. Okay. But if you take a look at the other notes that are within that chord, the B and the D, both of these notes lead in very well to the C and the E, which are in the C chord, C and E. Okay. If I take a look at my G chord, B has a tendency to lead up to the C, and D has a tendency to lead up to the E. Okay, so if I were to take my G chord and move to an inversion of C, I'm only moving those 2 notes. And you see they lead up very well, which means that the G chord has a lot of tension to resolve when returning to C, which is why your ear perceives it that way. Okay. Another chord that has that same type of function is the subdominant, the 4. Okay. If you take a look at the 4 chord, the 4 chord has the note C in common with the tonic. C and C. Okay. But if we take a look here, F has a tendency to lead down to the E, and A has a tendency to lead down to the G. Okay, so either way you look at it, G has a lot of tension and resolve to C, and so does F to C. Okay, there's even going to be certain instances where you've probably heard a 4-5-1 movement. That's I Want to Wish You a Merry Christmas. Okay, that has a very, very strong resolution to the 1. So those are our 2 most important. Another important one that you may want to familiarize yourself with is going to be the 6 and the 7, the submediant and the leading tone. Okay, the thing with the submediant, the 6th scale degree, is that it's the relative minor of your tonic. Okay, in this case, my tonic is C, and then my relative minor of the key of C is A minor. Okay, what does this mean? This means that all the notes that are in my C major scale, if I take all those notes and simply start on A, I get my A minor scale. Okay, that's why the 6 is the relative minor, and vice versa. C is the relative major of A minor. Okay, but essentially with that, A minor can become kind of like a tonic in this sense. Okay, they call it a submediant, but if it were me, I probably would have named it something else, maybe something similar to the realm of being a tonic, because if you're in the key of C, C can be home, but depending on how you want to end the song, the 6 can very well be the new home base. Okay, so the 6th scale degree and the tonic, the 1, can be interchanged with each other. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they have the same type of dissonances and resolution. So if I were to go from a 5 to a 6, that would be more of a leading tone. Okay, which is what we're going to get into next. Leading tones more commonly lead directly into the tonic. They're a half step away or sometimes a whole step away they can be. But in this particular case, if I have this 7 leading up to my 1, we call that the leading tone. Okay, and the reason why we call that a leading tone is just simply because it's the closest note to the tonic that progressively moves towards it. Okay, and then you have your 2 chord, which is your supertonic, or your 2nd scale degree, and your 3rd scale degree, which is the mediant. They're kind of utilitarian. I mean, they can be anything that they want to be. They're kind of in the middle when it comes to their importance, but the main ones that you want to know are your tonic, your subdominant, your dominant, and the submediant, the 6. Okay, so let's look at that in practice. Okay, when we're talking about scales, okay, we're talking about a scale degree. This is what we're talking about down here. Your tonic would be C, your supertonic would be D, mediant would be E, and so on and so forth. You're just replacing the numbers with these new names, okay? And remember, the whole thing with music theory is that we're just looking for names to call these certain terms, okay? We're just looking for names to address them by, all right? So if you already know your number system and stuff like that, you don't need to replace it with these scale degree names. These scale degree names just kind of help us understand the function of each note within any given key. Okay, you're more commonly going to see scale degrees used when we're talking about chord progressions. Okay, because it's a lot easier to talk about the uses for a chord when you're talking about it in scale degree terms. Okay, the word dominant by itself means that it has a dominant nature. It's an overpowering sound. Okay, that's why the 5 resolves so nicely to the 1, because it's such a high tension chord that your ear really, really wants you to go back to the tonic. And because we have been listening to Western music, and music in general, has some of these different tendencies, our ears are trained to hear those resolutions and anticipate them. Okay, so if you look at your scale degree names, you'll start to see that some of them actually have a meaning behind the name, and sometimes the regular meaning is what it is. So dominant in this case means that the strongest chord in any key that has the strongest resolution to your tonic is going to be your 5 chord. Especially if you're doing 7th chords. The 5 chord in any key is going to be the only chord that is a dominant 7. Okay, watch my video on chords to understand what I'm talking about with these. But a dominant 7 chord essentially is a chord constructed of the 1, 3, 5, and flat 7. Okay, that resolves very nicely to C. Okay, and the reason why that sounds so good is because of this B. This B that leads up to the C, this D that leads up to the E, and this F that leads up to the G. Okay, essentially it's a leading tone. Remember, the leading tone would be the 7th scale degree. Okay, and all of those notes lead up to the tonic. Well, when we're playing a dominant 7 chord, what we're essentially doing is playing the 5th down here, and we're playing the 7th chord up here. Okay, so that's just another way that you can look at it. Don't get too confused by it. If you didn't understand it, don't worry about it. But I'm just explaining the theory behind why that works, okay, and why your ear wants to hear those notes pull up to the C. Okay, so that's just a little teaser, a little introduction into some of this stuff. If you don't understand it right now, just move on to the next video. I guarantee you that this will all make sense later, but it's really good for you to at least understand what these different names are so that you can get an understanding of why certain chord progressions are written certain ways. And just basically it's kind of giving you a theory behind music in general, the movement of chord progressions. Okay, so go on ahead, learn these scale degrees, brush up on your number system if you need to, and just kind of take some time to step away from the instrument and just look at it on a piece of paper so that way you can understand how all the moving parts work. That's going to be it for this video. If it was helpful for you, please remember to like and share this video. Comment down below if you want to see more videos like this. But until the next one, you guys have a good one.